Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to Mind the Mental Mondays. It's been a couple of weeks. The last 2 weeks were just crazy, just a lot of things going on. Last week in particular, I wasn't in the greatest mental space, and so I decided not to do Mind the Mental Monday because I actually needed to. I needed to mind my own mental last Monday. Now my hair is looking all wild and I'm looking all wild and crazy. But just bear with me tonight because one of the things that is great for my mental health is the fact that my two granddaughters live closer to us now, and so we get to see them and we get to love on them in person. And they were over here earlier today, and I took the oldest one for a walk and lost track of time, which is why we're starting late tonight. We're starting at 8:15 instead of 8 o'clock. Y'all know I like to be punctual. I like to start right at 8 o'clock. But tonight I had a good excuse, and so it was really good seeing them. They really kind of helped me to perk up my mental, because when they're around, it's just nothing but love, and I love them so much. So come on in the room, do what we normally do. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Let me know one thing you've done in these last 2 weeks to mind your mental. What is something that you have done specifically to care for your mental health? Just put it in the chat, put it in the comments, let me know. I want to see if you guys are taking in some of these tips that we've been giving on Mind the Mental Monday. So, all right. Well, tonight is exciting for me because I have a special guest who has been on Mind the Mental Monday with me several times, but I thought it would be great to bring him back tonight to talk about the fact that men should mind their mental too. And we all know that June is Men's Mental Health Month. And today is the last day of June. And so I wanted to go out of the month of June with talking about mental health for men. I want to encourage our men that it's okay, to to care for your mental health. A lot of times we talk about women, feeling like we need to be strong, especially Black women, feeling the need to be strong and to, take on all the things of the world. And we tend to take on a lot as women, but I think men do the same thing. There are, many good men out there who have the pressures of the societal pressures, even of being the breadwinners or taking care of the family and making sure the family has everything that they need. And, it can be a lot of pressure on men. So I thought that I wanted to have a man to come and talk from a male perspective about men's mental health. And what better person than my husband, Reverend Dr. Wayne Matthew Weathers, who has had his own journey with coming to the conclusion of needing to get some extra help for his mental health, going into therapy and becoming, he was always a strong man, but going through therapy he's grown and just gained strength in other areas where he might not have been as strong in. And it's been a wonderful journey. So I'm going to ask him to come on into the shot. And normally we do this, we are in separate rooms and on our separate devices because we feel like it works better that way. But I think we're able to both kind of fit into the shot here. And so welcome.
Hey, babe.
Thank you for joining Mind the Mental Monday tonight. And I know that you have been under, a lot, a lot of stress in being a caregiver. So that's something else that we don't really talk about. And I kind of want to deal with that perspective because we talk a lot about women being caregivers, but we really don't deal with men
Mhm.
who are caregivers and the impact that caregiving can have on their mental health. So you want to talk about that or okay. So why don't you talk about some what you've been kind of laughing.
Next time, give my pre-questions to my agents so I can review
Anyway,
and give to my
we don't
agent.
do free questions on my mental Monday. You got to be ready. Come on, you got to be ready.
Just for the record, I ain't got no agents, so I ain't got no agent.
He's
All right,
just
let's get it. All right, yeah. No, so it's been wow for a year. It's been a heck of a journey. My dad, we say our dad because there are no in-laws in our family and everything. Just very, we kind of be private, but I'll just put it out there. After my mother passed away in 2022, around the spring of 2023, my dad was diagnosed with dementia. And so if you can imagine the journey, we was on a 6-year journey with my mother with Alzheimer's and the dirt is not fresh in the ground as my mother transitioned from labor to reward, and then dad is diagnosed with dementia. And so 2024, as I received the Racial Justice Award, the Emmanuel McCall Racial Justice Award with the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship, I never got to enjoy it because the banquet was at, this is June 2024, in Greensboro, North Carolina. The banquet was at 11:30. It was over by 1, and it was a very monumental occasion. You know, the congregation, some of the folks from not folks, but some of the congregants of Vision of Hope came, and we afterwards, some of my colleagues, we went to go celebrate, have dinner around 4 o'clock, and I got a frantic phone call that my dad went into a dementia state, didn't know where he was, and I'll be very candid with you. He went in to the bathroom at 4:30 because I had to check the cameras and he never came out. And we thought that my dad transitioned, which he didn't. So from that point, the very next day in communication with my brother and my aunt and everything, I had to make a decision and we left Greensboro, North Carolina and speeded all the way, maybe speed's bad vocabulary, let's just say in an aggressive manner, came all the way to Delaware and we were told he could not live by himself anymore. And so through that transition of having, running back and forth, well, really not even running back and forth, making my dad's house my place of stay until he got out of the hospital and then transitioned him into rehab, which they did in Jersey. And then he lived with us. And then after a while, his care just became too complicated for my wife and I to care for him, then had to make the hard decision not to put him in a nursing home, but was determined to put him in assisted living. And so there's that turmoil throughout the whole entire process that you go through as a caregiver, the guilt of feeling like you have to put them in assisted living when you really want to take care of them for yourself. There's the guilt there. Just the grief and the trauma that you're still dealing with right now that dad will never be able to go back into the retirement home that he bought for my mother, for he and my mother, just to be able to enjoy that they never really got to enjoy. And mom was the thread that stitched us together, but dad was the rock that provided the concrete for my brother and I to walk life. And so to see, dad's not, how can you say he's not in a situation where they gave expiration date that this is the day or how many hours he has to live. He's not there, but he's not the same physically strong dad because of his ailment. And that plays a mental toll as well. And so there's so many caveats to being a caregiver. And it's kind of ironic that Nita, you brought this up because in a couple of days I'm getting ready to post something on, a chat about being a caregiver. I won't go into detail about that now because I'm still dotting I's and crossing T's, but it is it is a journey. Thank God for, you know, not even therapy. Me and my therapist, we talk about it A lot, a lot. There's the highs and there's the lows, and then there's the stuff that comes with the emotional toil that comes with being a caregiver that, has its impact. My thing is, so when, I'm at war with depression and everything, I don't say I'm struggling with depression. I say I'm at war with it. And so now, how I get through these days as a caregiver, uh, my terminology is it's life and I'm lifing my way through.
Mm.
Yeah.
What do you think is something unique about men who may be caregivers in the same way that you are, or who face, the mental challenges that go along with it? What if you were to if you were speaking to like a group of men,
Hmm.
what might you say that to encourage men that it's okay to see a therapist, that it
Hmm.
doesn't make them weak? Like, how would you encourage men?
I think the first thing, and you've heard this, so I think the first thing is we have to decolonialize our mind
Mm,
from the Western masculinity or the Western model of masculinity.
yes.
And what I mean by decolonialize our minds of Western masculinity, there is an animated myth that's destroying men that says that you can't show emotions, you can't cry, you are less than a man if you show emotions, and that model is not real. And there are men who are dying silently because they feel that they have to show this model. Like case in point, a year ago, almost a year ago, January to be exact, January 2025 to be exact. I remember you kept saying to me, and I'm gonna get to the answer. Remember, you kept saying to me, you got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of yourself. I did, dad was first priority. And I said, well, I don't really care about myself. I got to make sure that dad's taken care of. And you said, well, what good are you to dad if you don't take care of yourself? Well,
Mm,
there's that Western masculinity concept that I'm Superman and
mm,
I don't bleed, I don't sweat. I got to take everything on my shoulder and I got to get dad across the finish line because see, I'm less than a man if I don't do all of these things. And
mm,
yeah, I was almost less than living because my blood pressure shot up all the way.
yes.
You got me? I'm
Hmm.
not gonna say I was at death. I don't want to come across,
Right.
oh, that's
Yeah.
Weather's getting ready
Yeah.
to die. No, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
say that. But I would say the whole myth of getting a therapist, just think about it like this. We all need an outlet. We all need someone to help us process what's going on in here. And I hear men say, I'm not gonna pay someone to tell my problems to. I could talk to myself. You're not paying someone to tell your problems to. You have a therapist. Number one, uh, a therapist by law, unless you are breaking the law, a therapist by law has to keep confidentiality of what you say. So it's a safe space to be able to unload and get everything out that's mentally within without having to worry about if anybody's going to talk about it, who's
Hmm.
going to spread your business, whether it's family, friend, or foe. And so that's the first thing. What I've learned with the therapist is they are uniquely qualified, especially a psychotherapist, to be able to dig deep and allow you to see certain triggers that's going on in your life that you didn't even know that was there.
Hmm.
And so, I think we have to break the myth and the fallacy that having a therapist is wrong. It's a sign of weakness. No, having a therapist is a sign of strength. It's admitting that, hey, I need help and I'm willing to get the help. But again, we have to decolonialize our mind from a Western concept of masculinity that does more harm than good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that how do men get to that place though? Like, how can men get to a place of, sort of decolonizing their minds? Um, because, this has been a practice and a thought for so long for many of them since birth. And then the other thing is that a lot of them don't have others, like other men in their lives sort of
Mhm.
co-signing. They've got other men in their lives who are in that sort of what they call toxic masculinity, that's sort of pressing that, and maybe even teasing them if they decide
Yeah.
to get therapy. And how do they walk that line?
So a couple of things, something else I need to add also. Not only for me, I not only did I had to decolonialize my mind, I had to de-traumatize my mind.
Mm,
So let me explain what I mean by that. So there's some that would think, and I'm not deviating from what you asked, I just need to give history and context. Some would think that I chose not to go to a therapist because of my westernized mindset, that it shows a sign of weakness. That wasn't why I didn't go to therapy. Reason why I did not go to therapy is because a person I looked up to, and I still look up to, is very influential in my life as well as others in our family, my Uncle Edward. He was the first in out of my brother's siblings to go to college and graduate. I was the first out of my grandmother's grandchildren to graduate from college. Not go because there was cousins that went to college, but I was the first. My uncle was called into the ministry. I was called into the ministry. Growing up, I was told that, I had a mouth like my uncle. I said what I said and say what I say, and was willing to get in trouble in the process. And so he was the same way. My uncle was politically astute, and I'm politically astute. My uncle was heavily involved into denominational politics in the AME church. I'm heavily involved in denominational politics in the Baptist church. I used to be AME. And um, so my uncle, while he was in college, led a nonviolent march at Wilberforce University, and it got out of hand. I won't even say it got out of hand. From what we were told, it got out of hand and the student union burned down. As I've done research, yes, the student union burned down, but it didn't burn down because my uncle led a march. It burned down 3 o'clock in the morning in 1969. However, my uncle got the blame. So my uncle was investigated by the CIA and the FBI, etc., because of Black Power movement, Black radicalism, and things like that. And that was a whole bunch of pressure that was applied to my uncle. And so afterwards, he went on to get his master's degree, and then he was a couple of credits short from getting his PhD, and he suffered a nervous breakdown. And so because I was always said that, my mouth was like my uncle, I'm very outspoken like my uncle. He went to college, I went to college. He's in ministry. At that time, I was being called into ministry, and I was so fearful that
mm,
I would, suffer nervous breakdown, become a paranoid schizophrenia and things like that. When I knew that I needed mental health, not mental health, when I knew I needed mental help, I was afraid that
mm,
acknowledging that I needed mental help meant that I was becoming a paranoid schizophrenia.
mm,
And then when my uncle passed away, he was found in the Delaware River. That's a whole nother story. When that casket went down in the ground in South Carolina, I didn't see the casket of my uncle going down in the ground. A sense of paranoia kicked in. It's like, oh my God, that's going to be me.
mm,
And so after a while, so all of the time when you and I we got married and everything, and you kept telling me, you need to see a therapist, you need to see a therapist. I did not resist seeing a therapist because of Western masculinity. Seeing a therapist to me was, oh my God, I'm turning out like my uncle.
mm.
Oh my God, I'm going to be a paranoid schizophrenic.
Good.
Oh my
Mm,
God, I'm gonna be found in a river. Oh my God, I'm gonna go down in the grave real quick.
mm,
And so all of that was and to add to that, growing up, we had to watch what we say on the phone because there was always this concern whether the FBI or the CIA, don't know if they did or not, but there was always this concern that they were tapping our phones, listening to what we were saying because of my uncle's involvement at Wilberforce University when the building came down, burned
mm.
down, when the building caught on fire.
Right.
So you have the trauma of my uncle, you have the trauma of the experience. So I had to de-traumatize my mind to say I need help.
Yes. It's interesting because I think that a lot of people may maybe grow up in households where they're told that they're like somebody in the family, and if something traumatic has happened to that person as a child, if you're being told that you're just like that person, it
Hmm.
stands to reason that you might become a little fearful and think, oh well, that same thing will happen to me
Hmm.
if I go down that path. And I think that for men, men are often, told, um, uh, men are told in different ways, like what it means to be a man.
Hmm.
And then you have so it just runs the gamut. You have men who grew up with a man in their home and who are good models. You have people that grew up with poor models. Then you have people that grew up with no model at all of what it is to be a man. And so they're getting it from, now in this generation, it's like they're getting it from TikTok. They're following or in our generation, there might be some kind of entertainer that people are looking up to,
Hmm.
that they want to that's their idea of a model man. And
You're right. It's so we have to watch the images that we take on that says this is what it means to be a man. You know, I was blessed, and I say that I was blessed because I was surrounded by men.
Mhm.
So way we grew up and everything. My dad, when he migrated from the South to the North, when his siblings, half his siblings came from South Carolina to Chester, PA, the other half stayed in South Carolina. And then there was already a village of Weathers that already migrated, to Chester and everything. What my dad and his siblings did was they replicated their community from South Carolina, which
Mhm.
means that, when my dad and his brothers, they all bought houses in close proximity to each other. You got me?
Yeah.
And then my aunt May and my aunt Marie, they lived together for a certain time, and then they moved, to a certain section in Chester, right a half a block, really a stone's throw away. God bless her soul, my aunt Millie. And then my aunt Marie, when she got her house, moved right across the street from my aunt May. So there's
Mhm.
always been a village. When it comes to men, my Uncle Bob was down the street. You know what I mean? My Uncle Sam Lee was right around the corner. My Uncle Donald, my mom's brother, lived with us for a certain time period. My Uncle Melvin, while he was in the military, when he came to Chester, he would come stay with us and he would come see my mom and things like that. When I go to South Carolina, I go see my Uncle Benny. My Uncle Benny had this flashy red car. He and my Uncle Bob had this flashy red car. Uncle Benny, he still got the cool talk and everything. My Uncle Bland, when I go to South Carolina, that's my dad's youngest brother. I used to think he was my cousin because out of all of the cousins, out of all of the uncles, he played with us, right?
Mhm.
And I used to think that he was my cousin until my dad got serious with me when I was a kid and said that no, that's my youngest brother. So I was always blessed to be around men and to take it a step further, the church, Reverend, my pastor, Reverend William B. Fosh. You
Mhm.
got me? He was
Mhm.
no joke. You got
Right.
me? He was no joke.
Right.
So I was blessed. But even though I was blessed to be around men, positive men, I still hung around cats that try to tell me what it meant to be a man.
Right.
And it's kind of sad when people who are not men trying to tell you how to be a man. I'm just gonna be candid with you. People who are not men trying to tell you what it means to be a man.
Mhm.
And so I had the best of both worlds. I had the positive side of black men and everything. And then I had, boys trying to be men, trying to tell me what it means to be a man. So I
Right.
didn't mean to go on.
Yeah. One of the things that stuck out for me in what you were just saying is the need for village. And that's something that we talk about a lot on Monumental Monday, the need to, have a village
Hmm.
around you that of supportive people. And usually I speak from the perspective of women because women tend to kind of come together in that way sometimes and
Hmm.
be that village. Talk about the importance of men, kind of having that a village of like-minded men,
Hmm.
to be a support with.
So let me just add a little text to that. Um, the right men having the
Yes,
right village.
right.
Because men have village,
Hmm.
but sometimes the village that they have is not a village of a positive environment.
Hmm.
So it's so great for men to have that village where iron sharpens iron to do good. Like case in point, I still won't mention the pastor's name. He wouldn't mind, but I don't have his permission. The reason why I came out and admitted 2010 that I was seeing a therapist because I was in a village with an African American pastor and I thought it was the worst thing that I could do is have a therapist, and he was like, there ain't no big thing. I got a therapist.
Hmm.
He says we would be crazy uh all the stuff we go through as pastors, we would go crazy if we didn't have a therapist. So now in the villages that I'm in now, I had to reprocess the villages that I chose to be in. And there's some I walk solo, but then in others I walk in a village where we we lean on each other's shoulder, right? We are the type that will iron sharpens iron, but we will also correct each other when correction is needed. You follow me? I can lean on, like I'll say right now, Pastor Robert Johnson,
Hmm.
Messiah United Methodist Church. It was at that time, it still is, Pastor Darren Johnson. He's from North Philadelphia. He's pastoring in Richmond, Virginia. I just want to put them in this category, the villages that I find myself in.
Hmm.
So, Pastor Darren Johnson, Pastor Robert Johnson, and God bless his soul, which I still struggle with today because I wasn't able to make his homegoing service, Bishop Mike Tyson. I put all of them in a group. Not that they all knew each other, but they are my punch me in the jaw brothers. Yeah. And to be candid with you, I have to say spiritually punch me in the jaw because the way those Negroes grew up, if I wanted them to physically punch me in the jaw, they would. Very seriously, because they are no joke. But they are the ones that I need to talk to where I need a straight shooter. I don't
Yeah,
need to be pacified. I
yeah,
don't need to be, yo, Wayne, it's going to be okay. You'll
yeah,
be all right. I need Negro, get out of it. Get out of yourself.
yeah,
You're too much into yourself,
yeah.
And those are the cats that cat's bad choice for it, but they my brothers in Christ. Pastor Darren Johnson went to Virginia State University together. Came in at the same time. God bless his soul, Bishop Mike Tyson. I never forget Bishop Mike Tyson. He checked me. I'll never forget that day. So this is just an example of the villages that you find yourself in.
Hmm.
So the church I left in North Philly was very traumatic, and I was going through a state of depression, anger, and a whole bunch of other negative emotions. And so Bishop Tyson took me out to lunch, not too far from the job that he was working. And as I was talking and everything, in the midst of, us talking, I forget what the conversation was about. It was, we were talking about the church that I left, and he checked me. And I'll never forget that day. And the check helped me heal. And he said, Weathers, he says, all of this time you've been talking. He said, you not once mentioned the name of the church that you left. You describe it, you talk around it, but you never mention its name. He says, I'm going to tell you now. He said, you will never fully heal until you forgive them.
Hmm.
After all that I went through there,
Yeah,
or the whole,
absolutely.
he knows
Hmm.
front to back. He has family members there. He knows front to back what I went through.
Hmm.
Normally someone like that, they're like, yo, bro, I know you went through, man. That was kind of jacked up and whatever they get, they deserve. And
Yeah.
yeah, man, you'll be okay. And they gonna
Hmm.
get there, so on and so forth. No, he didn't come from that perspective. And nobody said that either.
Hmm.
What he came from is, yo, he didn't even put the focus on them. He put the focus on me.
Yes.
You will never be able to heal until you forgive them. Until you forgive them, you will never heal. And so those are one of the many villages that I find myself in. And it was from that advice that put me on the track to heal to be the person that I am today.
Yeah, I think that is so important. Because, I think that you do stand a chance of, if you're overly pacified, like there's to an extent, you need people who are encouraging and who can say, listen, you're not going to be here, this not going to be this way all the time, and you're not, and so forth and so on. But then you do need those who will allow you to see that you do have the capacity to deal with some of these things that can be very, very hurtful to you.
Hmm.
And so I think, because I think even in talking about mental health, there's a therapist that I follow on Instagram, and I'm blanking on her name right now, but y'all have seen, I put a lot of her stuff in my story because she talks a lot about how we sort of we use these mental health terms to sort of enable ourselves to sort of weaken ourselves in a way, to
Hmm.
like, to think that we're not supposed to go through some of the things that we deal with. And so, we just want to dismiss challenges that we might have, rather than dealing with them head on and saying, yeah, I'm dealing with this challenge, but the challenge, I might have a challenge, but the challenge doesn't have me.
Right.
I do have the mental capacity to withstand this that I'm going through. And guess what? When I get to the other side of it, it's going to make me stronger in the long run.
Hmm.
Right. And so I think, now we have this way of sort of almost using mental health care to sort of dim ourselves in a way to sort of take us away from what we're dealing with when the point is that having a therapist or having someone who is a trained person to help you navigate through certain situations. The point is that you are able that you get to know yourself and know that you do have the ability to get through the situation
Hmm.
that you're dealing with, not to just sweep it under the rug or press it down or suppress it. No, bring it up.
Hmm.
Bring all of it up so that you're not screaming within. You're not, imploding. You're not then, exploding on people around you because you have not taken the time to deal with the situation and that you don't even know that you have the capacity and the means to get through the situation or the challenge that you might be facing. So I think, that is so important that you recognize that when you do have a village that you your village can consist of people with different strengths,
Hmm.
and each of those strengths can help you. So yeah, you need that crew that you can go to, like when you need somebody to just be straight up, like,
Yeah,
listen,
yeah.
Negroid, like you need to get it together, right? And then you might need to have that group that's kind of like your wife that's gonna be like, okay, babe,
Yeah,
I'm gonna pat you on the
keep
cheek
keep at
and
me,
then
keep at
punch you in the jaw on the other side. No.
Yeah, you got a good left hook. Now let me
Not condoning domestic
nah,
violence. We're just being
let me
playful.
just say this for you, and I also want to share what I love about you is I get both. So
Mm,
there's the part where when I'm broken down, and I don't even want to tell you I'm broken down, and it's the dumbest thing because we've been together 31 years, and I try to hide the fact that I'm broken down, and you could see it. And then there's the other part that's like, listen, you got to pull yourself out of this. So it's not like I'm being, pacified all the time. So I get the best of both worlds. But if I could just say this to trained professionals as well as trained pastors. One of the challenges you face as a man, and I'm not even as a man, but I really as a trained professional, let me just speak specifically to men, because here's one of the mistakes that I made also. Because I trained in chaplaincy, I'm a trained pastor, and now I'm a trained coach, life coach. Sometimes you think, oh, I don't need a therapist because see, I can self-diagnose myself.
mm,
You know what I mean? I know the symptoms. So, when someone dies, okay, I'm in stage one grief. So I have, I'm crying and I'm mad at God. And, I find myself in this hole. So I don't need to talk to a therapist because, see, I know the symptoms. So I can just, I can treat myself and get out of this. You're setting yourself up to sink deeper,
yeah.
because there were times when, this is my third therapist, not because I had a multiplicity of mental challenges, but my first therapist went on a sabbatical. My second therapist, he actually switched agencies and my insurance didn't cover that agency. But in the interim, I didn't want to get another therapist. I felt like I had to start all over. So then I'm self-diagnosing myself. Okay, yep, I'm depressed right now because of here's the trigger, here's the depression. So I'll just pull myself out, but I'm sinking deeper. Someone dies, whether it's in the church or outside the church. Oh, I'm crying. I'm mad at God. I'm going through all of these stages of grief. I don't need to talk to a therapist because I can just pull myself out. I'm going deeper. So don't allow your profession because you are in the mental health field or you have training in mental health. Say, oh, I'm not in need of a mental health. I'm not in need of a therapist. No, we all need help. So I just wanted to add that.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is good. How do you feel? What do you think is the current state of men in mental health? Because I'm seeing now like a lot of like podcasts and things that really go straight forward to men, and you're
Hmm.
seeing like men in sports, basketball players and football
Hmm.
players and things like that who are coming on podcasts and who are being very vulnerable and,
Hmm.
really expressing things that they've gone through.
Right.
Um, what, how do you feel like the state of men and mental health, how do you feel like it's going, both in a secular sense and also in the church?
So that's a great question. So I think you have to look at it from a generational perspective.
Mm,
We're dealing now with one, it's okay to be vulnerable in this phase of life when at a certain phase we were taught you can't be vulnerable.
hmm
And so when you're dealing, let's start with the younger generation. The younger generation now can be more open about the state of their mental health. Uh, I'm Generation X, so I'm finally at a point, well, I'm not finally, 10 years ago, after speaking to another Gen Xer, I found out it's okay to say that I have therapy. Not therapy, that I have a therapist. But then you have another generation that may not be open, World War II generation or so on and so forth. And that's not putting them down because that's a whole different mindset and a whole different generation that's still probably under that westernized masculinity model that
Right.
says any type of admittance of seeing a therapist reduces your manhood. So I
hmm
think from a generational perspective, I think in this day and age, in the 21st century, it's more embraced by society, both men and women, because there's some women
hmm
that would have, just say in the 90s per se, or in the 80s or before, that probably would have thought, oh, if you have therapy, then you're weak, and I don't want to be around a weak man. I mean, I remember in the dating scene, before meeting you, that I was very cautious. What do I say? What do I don't say? How do I be transparent without coming across as being weak? I couldn't even be my authentic self
hmm
because there was these false fallacies that was put up that says if you are a man, you have to be this way. If you show these signs, that show weakness, and a woman don't want no weak man. Now, I'm not saying you had to be a boo-hoo-hoo crying dude. I'm just saying, you got me.
But also, it's okay to cry. Like
But not, but
if
not,
you
that-
have, if
but,
you
but not
not all the
every.
time,
But
of
that's
course.
what I'm getting at. I meet
Yeah,
you,
but
boo
it's
hoo,
okay to
Tuesday, boo
have
hoo.
emotions.
Yeah, it's okay to have them.
When I
Yeah,
think about the strongest man to ever live, which is our Lord and Savior Jesus the Christ, and I mean, he cried in as much as he turned over tables. Like
hmm.
he had these nuanced personality,
But
right?
but from the first chapter of Matthew to the last chapter of Matthew, he ain't cried through every chapter. From the first chapter Mark through the end of Mark, yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
I,
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I know
yeah,
what you're
yeah,
getting at, but
yeah.
but there are men who think that they can't cry at all.
No,
Like that's a sign of weakness if they cry. Somebody that they love passes away and they don't cry because it's like,
but if they don't, it's killing you on the inside.
yeah,
It's
it's just a release.
so.
Those tears are a release.
Let me bring a martial art concept into this. Is the early phase of martial art. I am not no Bruce Leroy or anything like that, but I remember, and this stuck out dearly to me, taking Kung Fu in Baltimore, Maryland, goes Kung Fu to be exact. So there was this concept, I'm getting to the point. There was this concept that we would have to lay on our back. Trainings is different now. And they would take a punching bag and they would drop it on our stomach.
Mm,
And what they would teach us is that when it drops, and they wouldn't do it like harshly to hurt, but they would drop the punching bag on your stomach for you to yell
hmm
it out. Because
hmm
what they said is that when you get hit with pain, one of the most destructive things you can do is hold the pain in. So when that punching bag hit our stomach, we were to yell out. Or when we do a certain punch, we were to yell out, not to hold it in. I take that martial art concept and apply it to mental health. It's more destructive for you to hold it in.
Yeah.
Because what I've learned in the first stage of therapy, this is because I would just explode like a volcano, right? Someone stepped to me, I'm coming at you, and I'm coming at you with force
Yeah.
because of some pre-existing issues. And what
Mhm.
I was told is that the more you hold it in, the more you suppress it. And when you suppress it over and over and over, it's not doing any good. It's just building up to blow up.
Right.
So if we as men are being told that you can't express who you are, the only thing you're doing is suppressing your emotion, that one day you're going to explode. You're either going to explode on your neighbor, you're going to explode on your spouse, you're going to explode on your kids. And
hmm
so if we are creating an atmosphere that's saying men cannot express themselves themselves, then what we're doing is we're setting them up for an internal explosion that's going to have an external impact that's negative that could hurt somebody or really take somebody out of this world.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's already almost 9 o'clock, and I know that we started a few minutes late, but I think we're going to kind of try to stay within our time
No, I got more to
frame.
say. No,
Well, then
no,
what else
no,
you got
no,
to
no,
say?
no, no. I was coming at
Don't
nine
come on,
o'clock.
don't come on here taking over, try to take over my show.
Start late and end early because I'm on. I feel a certain kind of way about that. Let me call my therapist now. I'm triggered. I'm triggered right now.
Well, good,
Yeah.
good.
See,
Handle it.
see, I gotta go through.
Handle the trigger.
See, I gotta go through. This ain't right. This ain't right. Let me talk to my agent. I gotta talk to my agent.
Somebody pray for me, please.
No, pray for me. I'm sorry. Let's get back
Pray for
into
both
that.
of us.
Yeah. Oh, they got issues. Hey, watch my nigga the more. They got some serious issues.
No, but I really do appreciate you coming on and,
Thank you.
talking about mental health from the male perspective as we close out Men's Mental Health Month. And so while this is the month that, we sort of shine the light on men's mental health, certainly this is not the only month that men should be taking care of their mental
No.
health. Everybody, men, women, and this is the other thing. That I would like to just in the last few minutes that we have, I really want to talk a little bit about how do we raise young boys um to get to for them to be strengthened to grow up and be okay with dealing with their mental health.
Yeah, I think so. The journey with all of our kids, but I'll talk about James per se. At a very young age, I start talking to him, right?
Hmm.
And I had to switch parenting from being very hard, right? Not abusive like beating, but just hard because I'm trying to get him ready for society, but to meet him where he is. And so at an early age, I was able to share with James, and it was uncomfortable for him because he didn't know how to take it. And that is anything you want to talk about, come talk to me.
Hmm.
And that was uncomfortable for him as a kid. I never forget that. And I remember saying to him, come talk to me. I'm not going to judge you. I said, I want you to come talk to me so we can have that open communication so that
Hmm.
you won't be learning from guys in the street that really don't know anything.
Yeah.
And so I had to keep emphasizing that, keep emphasizing that. And it didn't hit, I'm not it hit, but let me say, when he felt comfortable to start talking to me, it was around high school. So it
Hmm.
was little incremental steps,
Yeah.
guys or things he were going through in school and things like that. The name of my consulting business, BFG, Bound for Greatness, when he really opened up about the craziness that he felt that he was going through in school, feeling dumb, feeling stupid, and everything like that, I was like, no, you're bound for greatness. And
Hmm.
so that's what I kept pumping into, and which became my company
Hmm.
afterwards. So you ask the question, we have to start with kids, meet them where they are, create the environment, and allow them to have that safe space to be able to talk to you about whatever they want to talk to. I'm talking about young men,
Yeah.
and not judge them in the process. You can tell
Hmm.
them that what you're thinking is wrong or not thinking is wrong. Your decision is not the greatest decision that you made, but you build them up to make the right decision. But if we don't create those safe spaces or those safe places for them to be able to open up, or then we be not contradictory. We say open up, and then we call them stupid for opening up. You
Right.
got me? Because then that's a
Yeah.
permanent shutdown. You have to create a safe place and a safe space for them to be able to open up so that they can trust you. Because if you plant that seed in them as in that young kid, as in that young boy as a kid, he'll be able to open up and talk to you about anything as an adult. And that's the relationship my son and I have right now. Our
Yeah.
son, yeah, he can open up to me about anything, his mental health space, what he's going through. He'll call me up with the snap of a finger and
Hmm.
say, Dad, I'm feeling a certain way about this. Can you share with me your insight or something like that? I need to get your opinion. That's what he says. I need to get your opinion about this. I
Hmm.
don't say, yo, that's a dumb way of thinking. I just give him an observation. Yo, this is what I think. This is how I think you should be able to handle it. If it's professional advice, I'll say, hey, This is what I'm saying, but follow up and get a second opinion. If it's a life experience and everything, I'll just lay it out, not like, yo, get a grip, pull your bootstraps up. No, this is what I see. Pray about it, see if the diagnosis is correct. But hey, man, this is what I see, what's going on. Or if sometimes he came to me and said, yo, I'm feeling depressed. Let me set you up with a therapist. And this was as a teenager.
Hmm.
So it's really creating
Yeah.
that safe space and that safe place for them to be vulnerable without being judged about their vulnerability.
I like that because what I hear in all of that, and something that again that we say on Mind the Mental Monday all the time, is the need to be intentional
Hmm.
about these kinds of things. And so with our children, we need to be intentional about the relationships that we establish with them, and they need to be able to feel free that they can come and talk to us about anything.
Hmm.
Like you were saying, like without being judged, and remembering that we were young at one point, and
Hmm.
yeah, we might have made some questionable
Still young.
decisions.
We're still young.
I am
Yes, we
still,
are.
still, still, still young. You robbed the cradle, but but
I would come back, but nobody would never, they'd never watch mine in a minute again.
yes, keep it to
I was like, yeah,
yourself.
I'll keep it to
Whatever
myself.
it is,
Let me
just
let
keep
me
it to
talk to my
yourself.
therapist.
But yeah, just that intentionality
Hmm.
is always so important, that even in dealing with your own mental health is
Hmm.
being intentional about, recognizing the mental health space that you're in. And if you're in a space that is not where you want to be, um, figuring out what you need to do to move to the next place of where you're trying to be, and understand that our youth need the same thing.
Hmm.
Um, and that we are models for them. So, because he was open about going to therapy when he started going to therapy many years ago, and even taking our children to the therapist's office with him, they then became able to talk about going to therapy or whatever it is that they need. And so, he was very instrumental in getting and helping them as they were growing up and having their mental health needs met. So, so thank you
Hmm.
for those observations that you were able to make tonight, and thank you for joining me on this last day of Mental Health Month, Men's Mental Health Month.
Hmm.
And so understand that mental health care is a family affair.
Hmm.
Let's make mental health care a family affair, right? Let's check on each other, from the elders, from the boomers, down to the where are we at now? Generation A, AA, or something
I
like that.
stopped after
What our
generation. I
grandbabies?
stopped after Generation Z. So I
We're
went to
A.
Generation G to iGen to NGen. I don't know. Went from iGen to NGen. I don't
All
know.
the generations.
Yeah,
Let's check on each other. Let's be open and honest about where we are with our mental health. Let's, not try to hide it. Let's not suppress our emotions.
right.
Let's get the help that we need. And let's be bold and authentic and unapologetic in doing so.
If I could just add one 5 second,
Mhm.
um, for men, let me just say this: getting a therapist isn't a sign of weakness; it's a sign of strength. And just remember that you're not weak because you went to get a therapist. It shows strength. A strong man can say, I need help. A weak man knows he has to get help, but chooses not to because he thinks it's a sign of weakness and not a sign of strength. So getting a therapist is a sign of strength and not a sign of weakness.
Yes. And we're gonna let that be the last word. So thank you
I'm back because I got
all.
5 more words to say. No,
No more
no.
words. No more words for you tonight.
I'm
Thank you
Baptist preacher.
again.
No, I got more words. Now we start. Yeah.
I
Thank you for this
appreciate
opportunity.
you
Appreciate you too.
coming on and sharing your heart with us. And thank you all for tuning in to Mind the Mental Monday. Tune in next Monday, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. I hope everybody's off to a good summer. I hope you have a great holiday this weekend. Be safe. Let's keep our country and this whole world in
Yeah.
prayer and get in good trouble because it's necessary in this current climate and time that we're in. Want to also encourage you. Pastor Wayne here has a radio show on Thursdays at 1 o'clock.
Conversation
Conversation
unplugged.
Unplugged, where he unplugs all kinds of conversations that we need in our world, from politics to you name it.
Yeah.
They talk. He and his co-hosts have a variety of topics that they talk about. So tune in to Conversation Unplugged on WWDB
860
860
AM.
AM. You can get that online if you're not in the Philadelphia area, and you can tune in. You can go to his Facebook. I share it on my Facebook, my not this Facebook page, but my other Facebook page. It gets shared on there, so tune in. There's some great conversations that you will hear on there. All right, so. Oh, and we're both life coaches. So
Mhm.
if you are interested in life coaching, you can reach out to us and we'll be happy to speak with you about what we do.
The curated mind coach, I'm the visionary architect mind coach.
All right. So there you got it. So tune in again next week, next Monday, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And remember to mind the mental every single day. God bless and peace.
Peace. That one piece looks like a one piece. I'm sorry.